Elon, this will cause slight delays in Starship and Starlink Gen2 developments. In the past few weeks, SpaceX has been taking an active part in the Russia-Ukraine war and sending free Starlink terminals to Ukraine at the request of its government to help the country maintain internet connection after the Russian invasion. Since then, they have apparently become a potential target for Russian cyber hackers. Although a noble undertaking, the company is now so busy dealing with the issues that it has to delay the maiden flight of Starship, this space flight designed to transport humans to the Moon and Mars. Today we're going to talk about the potential delays in Starship and Starlink Gen2 developments due to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. I know what we're all thinking. What does a war in Ukraine have to do with the delays in the production of space rockets and satellites in the US? Well, stay with us till the end as we answer this question and more. So let's dive right in. SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk said Friday that his company is now focusing on cyber defense and overcoming signal jamming of its Starlink internet satellites amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Musk and SpaceX sent Starlink terminals to Ukraine at the request of a government official after internet service was disrupted across the country by the Russian invasion. A shipment of Starlink ground terminals, which use an antenna and terminal to access the satellite broadband service, arrived in Ukraine on February 28th. With the terminals in use, SpaceX is working to keep them online, Musk said. In a series of tweets on March 4th and March 5th, Musk said some Starlink terminals near conflict areas in Ukraine were experiencing signal jamming for several hours at a time, and the company had reprioritized resources to address the problem. As a result, he said he is anticipating slight delays in Starship and the second-generation Starlink satellites, which are expected to be launched by a Starship rocket. Some Starlink terminals near conflict areas were being jammed for several hours at a time, Musk wrote in a Twitter statement on March 1st. Our latest software update bypasses the jamming. Musk later said SpaceX is shifting its focus to keeping its Starlink service uninterrupted in Ukraine and likely elsewhere. SpaceX reprioritized to cyber defense and overcoming signal jamming, he wrote Friday. Musk quipped that the measures were a bit of an unexpected quality assurance work for the Starlink system. Musk also said the Starlink work will cause slight delays in Starship and Starlink V2. Starlink V2 is SpaceX's next-generation Starlink system. The latest Starship prototype is awaiting its first orbital test flight at a launch pad in Boca Chica, Texas, pending the Federal Aviation Administration's completion of an environmental review. SpaceX's Starship is a giant reusable spacecraft designed to use huge reusable booster called Super Heavy to launch missions into deep space. NASA has tapped the Starship vehicle to land astronauts on the Moon for its Artemis program. SpaceX is hoping to launch the first orbital flight of an uncrewed Starship in the next few months. Starlink V2 is SpaceX's next-generation Starlink system that includes laser links between satellites and other enhancements. The mammoth Starship rocket, which is currently the best bet for taking humans to the Moon and eventually Mars, is waiting for its first long-distance launch since late last year. The rocket was initially targeted for launch in December 2021, but was delayed as the Federal Aviation Administration delayed its review of the launch before licensing SpaceX. Musk, however, in a presentation in February, said that he is highly confident about a Starship launch in the next few months, soon after the FAA gives green light for liftoff. As for the timeline, the launch is expected no earlier than April, as the FAA delayed its approval by a month in a recent announcement. FAA now plans to release the final PEA on March 28, 2022, to account for further comment review and ongoing interagency consultations. A notice will be sent to individuals and organizations on the project distribution list when the final PEA is available, the agency said in a statement. SpaceX plans to introduce a smaller and lighter version of its Starlink dish, the Starlink Gen2. The company debuted the second-generation dish design on the Starlink website last year. The news signals that SpaceX is ready to ship the upgraded dishes to eager customers still waiting to try out the satellite internet service. In September, the company said it was preparing to boost its dish production with a new dish model slated to debut this fall, but this timeline has obviously been moved ahead since then. The second-generation dish adopts a square-shaped design that's slightly smaller than the circular dish on the first-generation model. It also weighs less at 9.2 pounds, compared to the 16 pounds in the first-generation model. The new dish also features a 3x3 MU-MIMO router, meaning it can simultaneously transmit data via 3 bandwidth systems to 3 devices without suffering network congestion. That's an improvement over the 2x2 MiMuMu router found in the original Starlink dish. In late February, SpaceX responded to a tweet from Ukraine's Vice Prime Minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, who is also the country's Minister of Digital Development. On February 26th, Ukraine's internet connectivity plummeted by 20%. Ukraine's lack of internet has gotten so terrible that Fedorov sought help on Twitter from SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. Just 48 hours after the tweet, a shipment of Starlink user terminals arrived in Ukraine, offering a backstop for Ukrainians whose traditional internet connection has been damaged as a result of Russia's intervention. Musk soon responded, revealing that SpaceX's Starlink internet connection had been enabled in Ukraine and that more Starlink technology was being deployed to the country. On March 3rd, SpaceX sent its latest batch of Starlink satellites into orbit on a Falcon 9 rocket. That mission launched 47 new Starlink satellites in orbit from Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. To date, SpaceX has launched more than 2,000 satellites into orbit, with plans for an initial mega constellation of 12,000 to provide global broadband coverage. Elon Musk's SpaceX sent a second cargo of Starlink terminals to Ukraine last week, earning praise from senior Ukrainian officials, including President Volodymyr Zelensky. After delivering Starlink terminals to Ukraine, Musk cautioned that the system could make its users vulnerable to military Russian attacks. Important warning, Starlink is the only non-Russian communication system still working in some parts of Ukraine, so the probability of being targeted is high. Please use with caution, Musk wrote on Twitter on March 3rd. Turn on Starlink only when needed and place antenna away as far away from people as possible, Musk continued. Place light camouflage over antenna to avoid visual detection, he added. So are you guys enjoying the video? What's the threat that Russia poses that requires SpaceX to utilize all their time and resources towards them instead of working on Starship and Starlink Gen2? Can you guess? So while you think, do subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to receive instant notification about all our future videos. Musk didn't elaborate on the nature of Starlink's service disruption in Ukraine or what kind of cyber attack it was exposed to. Signal jamming can be a sign of a denial of service cyber attack, which is accomplished by flooding a target network with traffic until the target cannot respond or simply crashes, thus blocking access to legitimate users. Because the Starlink internet service is provided from satellites, Russians don't have the ability to shut it down unless they hack or disrupt the service. On February 24th, the day Russia invaded Ukraine, a Viasat satellite that provided broadband services in Ukraine and other parts of Europe was hacked, causing signal loss across Europe. German and French officials said last week the cyber attack could be related to Russia. A similar scheme could be happening to Starlink. In a tweet on March 3rd, Musk advised Starlink users in Ukraine to exercise caution because Starlink is the only non-Russian communication system still working in some parts of Ukraine, so probability of being targeted is high. It's unclear how many Starlink terminals are active in Ukraine and who's using them. A photo tweeted by Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's digital transformation minister, on February 28th suggested that the initial shipment contained dozens of terminals. SpaceX was hoping to launch the first uncrewed orbital flight of Starship in the next few months, but Musk's tweet suggests the delay could be longer. No updated timeline has been shared so far. So, how far back do you think SpaceX's role in the Ukraine war will push the timelines on the launch of Starship and Starlink V2? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to watch more of our amazing videos, then stay tuned.